Let's jump into the NFL though, Brett. We said we were going to be having football at the top and the bottom of this episode, so we have finally come to the grand moolah of events, the NFL slate on Sunday. But before we get to Sunday, even though neither of us are on Thursday's game, I want to ask you as a Jets fan, how does it feel to finally be favored in a game? Because as a Giants fan, I don't know this feeling.
You mean you just didn't want to skip this one? I thought we would just skip it. This is the real toilet bowl, Higgins. This is the true toilet bowl of the NFL here. We got Brett Ripon. We got Jet fans debating if they want to win or if they want to lose, and maybe Gase gets fired. It is a mess of a game, but somehow, some way, the Jets are -1. My advice would be take Denver plus 110. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I think the reason why the Jets are favored in this is just because one team has their starting quarterback and the other one still has their backup in because Drew Lock is not going to start for Denver. However, it's very hard to pick either side of this. The over-under sitting at 40. If the defenses weren't so bad, I would say take the under, but the defenses are just as bad as the offenses on these teams right now, especially since Denver doesn't have Von Miller. He's the
Yeah,
only redeeming quality on either of these teams right now.
yeah. I mean, this is a brutal game. This is just a brutal game. I hopefully Ripon plays well, and Denver can score some fantasy points because the Jets have done nothing all year. I mean, we've scored, us and the Giants combined have scored less than 19 NFL teams by themselves, Higgins. And I have a feeling, I haven't watched all the Giant games, but I have a feeling that the Jets have contributed largely to that low scoring number.
Well, I think we've tortured you enough. Let's jump to the Sunday games. Before we give out our picks, it is important to note that the Pittsburgh Steelers Tennessee Titans game is postponed because, as you may have heard, three Tennessee Titans and some staff tested positive for coronavirus. Because of that, that also affected the Minnesota Vikings, who the Titans played last weekend. The Vikings travel to go face the Houston Texans. That game might end up getting postponed as well, considering that the Minnesota facility is closed right now. So I wouldn't recommend going on either side of that right now. Your bet might just get voided and you get your money back, but I don't think it's really worth it. If anything, if the game doesn't happen, go with Houston on Sunday, though. Minnesota's facility has been closed. They haven't been able to properly prepare.
Yeah, I mean, I this situation is interesting, but I just would have thought the NFL would have had a plan in place. We saw the MLB do this. They literally just could follow another league's blueprint, not to the T because the MLB plays every week, but look at what they do, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work, how can we avoid these problems and move forward. But it feels like the NFL just sat on their hands for all these months, Higgins.
I mean, they really did. They had the head start throughout the summer to get a plan together. Then there was the scramble in July for to try to get a game together. They got their draft done in the height of COVID back in April/May. It seems the NFL has been procrastinating this entire time, and I think their plan is basically this. And if you're listening instead of watching, I'm crossing my fingers. They're just, please don't get a COVID infection. Please don't. I think that's all they're doing. It feels like that's all they're doing. And for how big these teams are, the amount of staff it requires, it takes a little bit of crossing your fingers, but it also takes a plan.
Yeah, I mean the real truth of the matter is like these teams are so big, the people can honestly like not even not be doing something irresponsible. Like you could be home and your kid could come back from school and something happens. Like you could be doing all the safety precautions. It's just it's something that's at sometimes out of your control, but I hope everyone stays healthy and safe and to your point, yeah, I would probably lean Houston if this game ends up sticking on the board.
but wait until Sunday to make that
Yeah,
play.
do not touch that game right now. Do not feel the need to go bet the Houston Minnesota game.
We are recording this on Wednesday night. Our episodes come out on Thursday, so there is very good reason why we are not touching this game right now. However, if it is there on Sunday, you might find either of us on it. Let's talk about some of the games we are on, though, Brett. Indianapolis Colts versus the Chicago Bears. Now, Trubisky's gone. Nick Foles is the starting quarterback for the Bears now. The 3-0 Bears. Trubisky lost his starting job even though they had won 2 games to start their season already. And I think that just shows how much Matt Nagy and the Bears are confident in Foles and how it's just clear who the better quarterback in that room is. I mean, the Bears being disrespected at home plus 2.5 like this, take it. Nick Foles showed you everything last week that you've known he can do. Take the plus 2.5, maybe even take the plus 115 money line, to be honest.
Yeah, I was certainly leaning Chicago 2.5. But just it's like a trap, like it's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah, exactly. That's what it feels like because why is Indianapolis favored? They only beat the Jets.
They looked really good against the Jets, 36-7.
What are we talking about here,
I'm being
Higgins?
slightly
I look
sarcastic.
really
Don't
good
worry.
when I play second graders in basketball. Let me tell you, when I get on the court with second graders, I dominate.
I was being slightly sarcastic there, but I agree. I don't really understand why the Colts are favored in this game either. That's why I'm going to be on the Bears, but I'm not confident enough for the money line right now. At 3-0, who knows, the bubble might burst for the Bears and get them their first loss. So plus 2.5. Could see this being a close one, though. Could see it being a back and forth affair. Could see me sitting on the edge of my seat this entire game as they just exchange leads.
This is my official, unofficial, official. It's a trap game. So I'm staying away from that one, but I can't argue with anything. Chicago's undefeated. Indianapolis honestly really showed me not very much. I was not very like I started T.Y. Hilton in my fantasy league because I was like, oh, he's playing the Jets. He should be at least able to get 15 points. He got like, 7.5 points. Like, what are we? They're nothing. They do not impress. Mo Alley Cox looks good. I'll say that. Jonathan Taylor could be a pretty good player, but Philip Rivers hasn't impressed me, so yeah, I'm going with Nick Foles. Or I'm leaning with Nick Foles, but I don't want to crumble your bet with our pillars. So we already have one pillar bet. Why risk it with two?
I agree. Some games that we're not going to be on: Jacksonville versus Cincinnati, Minshew versus Burrow. I find an interesting dynamic. That game almost baited me into betting it, but I stayed away. I might watch it for fun, but that's it. And then Cleveland versus Dallas. Jerry Jones making some interesting comments about Dak Prescott, and I think his future's about gone there. And when it's being said this early in the season, what's the motivation other than to try to get yourself paid next year in free agency? So Cleveland versus Dallas, I don't really see myself on either side of those games either. I'm not even really that interested in watching that game. I'll probably be on some of the other games, but I might flip back to it every once in a while.
Yeah, I am. I actually kind of leaning Cleveland as dogs versus Dallas. Just because I think Cleveland might be better than than Dallas. There's certainly have two running backs almost as good as Zeke, so that's an advantage Cleveland.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at this Seattle versus Miami game. I mean, the Seahawks, they're favored by just under a touchdown, minus 290 on the money line. The over-under's at 52.5. Russell Wilson's the early favorite right now in terms of odds to be the MVP. And I'm following this train. I'm following that offense that has looked pretty good so far. Seattle minus 6.5 doesn't seem that high to me when we have multiple games that have spreads over a touchdown this week, including 2 that are just under 2 full scores. So under a touchdown, Seattle I could see winning this game by a full touchdown, and being 3-0 against the 1-2 Dolphins, give me Russell Wilson over Ryan Fitzmagic.
Yeah, well, you called him Fitzmagic. I just don't know if you're fully accounting for the Fitzmagic, which is why I'm staying away from the sides and just going for the total score. Seahawks letting up a ton of points, Dolphins letting up a ton of points. One team's got an MVP candidate, the other team's got Fitzmagic. It just feels like it's going to be very high scoring. I think you're right, Higgins. I think Seattle covers 6.5. I mean, they're just so much better than Miami, but we've seen Fitzmagic do some crazy things.
Hey, last week I believed in Fitzmagic. I thought that the Fitzmagic was going to beat the Minshew Magic. He performed spectacularly, but the crutch to Ryan's career throughout his entire NFL career has been how wavy of inconsistency he can be. So he just had a really good game. I would not be surprised to see him come back down to earth a little bit.
Well, maybe he strings two together and then he strings together two stinkers, you know? Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's a little bit of a wave.
It could happen. It could happen. So -6.5 plus the over there. Um, this Chargers Bucks game is interesting to me. I just mentioned there's a few games that have over a full touchdown spread. Tampa's at -7.5, at least in Oregon they are, even though it's +108. That's the line they decided to list in Oregon was -7.5, but instead of it being -110 on each side, it's Tampa Bay +108 and the Chargers -128. Just weird bookmaking.
Sure. Fine.
Sure.
Yeah. Great. Let's throw these numbers up there.
Makes perfect sense. But Arizona versus Carolina, I see you like that game, Brett.
Yeah, I am on that game. I'm on my guy Kyler Murray. He's going east to west, but -3.5. I can bite that bullet a little bit easier than the -6.5 that you're taking with Seattle and Miami. Now, I do think Seattle is better than Arizona, but I also think Carolina is worse than Miami. So, -3.5 for a very similar type of matchup. I'm going to take Arizona -3.5 for pretty much all the things you said about Seattle, except exchange Seattle's wide receivers for DeAndre Hopkins and exchange Russell Wilson for Kyler Murray.
Arizona also let a game get away from them last week with Detroit coming to town and stealing a 26-23 win. I expect Kingsbury would probably have them focused to come back with a much better game this week. And -3.5, I agree. That line seems about right.
Yes.
That line seems about right. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I think they can cover that.
Speaking of Detroit, though, I am on the New Orleans versus Detroit game. The Saints are favored by -4.5 on the spread, -215 on the money line, and the over/under is at 54. And with the fact that Michael Thomas may be coming back this week, he's listed as questionable. There's rumors that he's going to be able to play this week. Marshawn Lattimore, Janoris Jenkins also might come back on the defense. I think we might see the Saints team that we have finally been expecting to see all season long. So Saints -4.5. I think that's a little low against a Detroit team that might have a false confidence from stealing that win against Arizona. Detroit needs a dose of reality. The Saints need an adrenaline boost. I think the Saints are going to come out here and get a rather commanding win. So -4.5 is where I'm going to be at.
Yeah, -4.5. I like that you're, kind of fading Detroit on a quote unquote high. It's interesting. I think Detroit looked better with Kenny Galladay. I will say that. So that's something we need to keep our eye on. But I think New Orleans is better than Detroit, top to bottom, with or without Michael Thomas. And who knows? Maybe they get him back this week. You never know.
Also, Alvin Kamara is just an absolute baller this season. He's not slowed down at all, and I don't know of a team that can stop him. I don't think Detroit can.
No, I don't think Detroit can.
Well, I'm looking at these other games. We got uh, Baltimore, Washington. That's an absurd 13-point spread. Giants, Rams, another absurd 13-point spread. I think both of them are in play still, but I'm not going to touch either of them. This New England Kansas City game, this should be amazing. I'm not on it right now. I'll probably find myself on it closer to Sunday, though. Chiefs currently favored by 7, and after that performance on Monday night, I understand why. However, it's Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides. Like, I'm leaning the +7 because I'm like, oh, that's disrespectful to Bill. And then I'm like, actually, I just saw Kansas City dismantle Baltimore, so maybe I should take the -7. But I would lean +7 on Wednesday night, but we'll see if I bet this on Sunday.
Over 52.5. Maybe I should just take that now, considering learning my lesson from last game where it was 54. But I'm gonna stay off of all of that right now. I'm not gonna take the over, even though it's looking at me pretty hard right now because that would be an impulse bet. But that game should be fantastic from beginning to end, I believe. Buffalo versus the Raiders. I think this is going to be a great test for the Bills and the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders, they've surprised some people. They've played pretty well so far this season, but they have to keep showing what have you done for me lately. And at 2-1, they got to come back and get a good win. The Bills at 3-0. If Josh Allen's the truth, a 4-0 start definitely gets his name mentioned more than just outside of Central New York, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say another win here would help Josh Allen. But have you seen the Josh Allen's apology form flying around Twitter and like Instagram and stuff? So he's already, people are taking note of how good he's playing. He's definitely been a top tier fantasy quarterback this year. So people are aware of Josh Allen. Sunday Night Football, though. Eagles 49ers, and that's like the injury bowl, Higgins. Philly currently +7.5, +255 on the money line. Is that enough to get you to bite on Philly?
No, I nearly pulled the trigger on the 49ers -7.5, though, because with Mostert, Garoppolo, and Kittle listed as questionable right now, there's a chance that all of them play. Plus the Eagles, they might have Alshon Jeffrey and Miles Sanders coming back this week. I think both of these teams are going to look very different. That's why I'm staying away from it. But if San Fran gets their tools back, I think the -7.5 is going to hit. I just
Okay.
do.
I don't know. I think if they get their tools back, it could definitely hit. But without Garoppolo and Kittle and Mostert, I mean, even if Mostert plays, like that one doesn't sway it that much for me. I think the 49ers are always going to be able to run the football, but 7.5's a lot of points in the NFL for your team to cover.
It is.
Obviously, there's two 13-point spreads this week, so it seems silly to say that, but I'm just not betting on the Giants this year. I'm just not doing it. And the Eagles are getting close to that territory, but I'm not sure if they're there yet.